My mother forced my twin sister and me to film videos for the internet, since we were kids, and it destroyed my life, until I did the unthinkable. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to go live at 3 in the morning, sitting on a cold bathroom floor with tears streaming down my face. But there I was, 13 years old, phone propped against the toilet, watching the viewer count climb while I sobbed into the camera. The tile was freezing against my legs. My eyes were so swollen I could barely see the screen. My throat hurt from crying silently for hours before I finally worked up the courage to press that button. I can't do this anymore, I remember saying, my voice cracking and broken. My mom makes me film every single day. Hours and hours. I haven't had a real childhood in 7 years. I don't even know who I am anymore. Please, someone help me. Somebody has to help me. The thing about crying on the internet is that people love it. Not in a helpful way, I mean. They love it like they love watching a car crash. They can't look away even when they know they should. I started that live with maybe 400 people watching, most of them probably just scrolling past another crying teenager. But then someone screen recorded it. Then someone else reacted to it in real time. Then bigger creators, people with millions of followers, started talking about it while I was still live. And suddenly I was trending across multiple platforms. By the time I wiped my eyes and looked at the screen through the blur of tears, 47,000 people were watching me fall apart. The comments were flying by so fast I couldn't read them. My phone was heating up in my hands from the processing power it was taking to handle that many simultaneous viewers. I cried for 12 minutes straight. Told them everything. How my sister and I had been filming since we were 6 years old. How our whole lives were content, every moment calculated for views. How I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just because I wanted to, not because it would make a good video. How exhausted I was, bone-deep tired in a way that sleep never fixed. How I felt like I was disappearing into this manufactured version of myself that existed only for views and likes and comments. How I'd pull out my own eyelashes when the anxiety got too bad. How I had panic attacks almost every day. How I wanted to be a normal kid so badly it physically hurt. The live ended when my mom opened the bathroom door. She must have woken up, noticed I wasn't in bed, heard my voice through the walls. I expected her to be furious. I expected punishment, maybe even her smashing my phone against the tile. What I didn't expect was for her to look at the view count still climbing on my screen, look at me with my tear-stained face and swollen eyes, and smile. Not a warm smile. Not a concerned mother seeing her daughter in crisis. A calculating smile. A business smile. The smile of someone who'd just realized they'd been sitting on a gold mine and didn't even know it. Her eyes were literally scanning the numbers, doing math in her head. She didn't hug me, didn't ask if I was okay. She picked up my phone, scrolled through the comments flooding in, watched the view count climb, even after the live had ended, and I saw something click behind her eyes. "Go to bed," she said quietly. "We'll talk about this tomorrow." By morning, that 12-minute video had 2.3 million views. It was the most viral thing our channel had ever posted, destroying every previous record we'd set. The comments were in the hundreds of thousands. News outlets were picking it up. Other creators were doing full breakdown videos analyzing every word I'd said. And my mom, she didn't shut down the channel like I desperately hoped someone would make her do. She didn't have some moment of clarity where she realized she'd been hurting us. She didn't suddenly become the mother I needed. She realized that my pain, my real unfiltered suffering, was worth more than any of the happy family content we'd been churning out for years. Raw emotion sold. Vulnerability sold. Trauma sold better than joy ever could. That's when everything changed. That's when the exploitation stopped being about making us perform happiness and started being about making us perform devastation. Because vulnerability, real raw trauma, that's what really sells. But that's what keeps people watching, sharing, commenting, coming back for more. I'd thought the live was my cry for help, my desperate attempt to make someone see what was happening to us. Instead, it became the moment my mother learned that breaking her daughters down on camera was the most profitable thing she'd ever done. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? I'd handed her the blueprint myself. I'd shown her exactly what kind of content generated the most attention. I thought I was asking for rescue. Instead, I'd just given her a new marketing strategy. That mistake would haunt me for years. 7 years before that bathroom floor breakdown, my sister Clara and I were just normal 6-year-old kids living in a cramped apartment in Ohio. Our mom was working 2 jobs, trying to keep us afloat after our dad left with basically nothing but child support payments that came maybe half the time if we were lucky. I remember the day everything started. Clara and I were singing some silly song we'd made up, and Mom filmed it on her phone just for fun, the way parents do. Except she posted it, and somehow it went viral. 400,000 views. We woke up the next morning to comments from strangers telling us how cute we were. Then the emails started coming in. Small brands wanted to send us toys to feature. They'd pay $200. Mom's eyes got this look I'd never seen before, like she just found the answer to a prayer she'd been too tired to say out loud. "Girls," she said, kneeling down to our level, "how would you like to make more videos? We thought it sounded fun." We were 6. Everything was fun at 6. Within 6 months, fun became a 4-hour daily filming schedule. Our shared bedroom got rearranged into a set, with ring lights and a backdrop. We'd come home from 1st grade, and instead of playing outside, we'd perform. I asked her once, "Mom, can I go play with the kids outside when we're done?" She was adjusting the lighting. Didn't even look at me. This is playing. Playing that doesn't pay the bills is just wasting time. By the time we were 9, we were pulling in $6,000 to $8,000 in good months, $2,000 to $3,000 in bad ones. Mom quit both her jobs. The channel wasn't just supplemental income anymore. It was everything. We were everything. Clara loved it. Loved seeing the subscriber count go up, loved reading comments, loved picking out which toys we'd feature next. She'd ask Mom every morning, "How many views did we get?" with this bright excitement in her voice. I started asking different questions. How much longer do we have to film today? And when can we stop doing this? The first time I asked when we could stop completely, Mom actually laughed. Not a mean laugh, but not a kind one either. More like I'd asked something absurd, something that didn't even make sense as a question. "Stop? Sweetheart, we're never stopping. This is our life now. This is how we survive." Clara nodded along enthusiastically. I felt something cold settle in my chest. That's when I first understood the difference between my sister and me. She saw opportunity and fame and being special. I saw a cage we'd never be let out of. She was already in love with the performance, with being watched, with existing primarily for an audience. I wanted to just be a kid. But we were identical twins, so everyone assumed we felt the same about everything. They assumed if Clara was happy, I must be too. They assumed that because we looked the same on the outside, we must be the same on the inside. They were wrong. We were already splitting apart even then, even that young. She wanted to stay. I wanted to escape. And every single day that passed, that divide grew wider. By 10 years old, I knew with absolute certainty that this was never going to end unless I found a way to end it myself. Clara knew with absolute certainty that this was the best thing that had ever happened to us. Neither of us was wrong about our own feelings, but we couldn't both be right about what our lives should be. The gum incident happened when we were 10, and it's the video I still have nightmares about. Not because of what happened, exactly, but because of how calculated it was. Mom had figured out that drama performed better than happiness. Conflict got more views than cooperation. So she started engineering situations, planting problems for us to navigate while she filmed. "Clara," she said one morning, holding out a piece of bubble gum, "I want you to put this in your sister's hair. Make it look like you're just playing around, being a silly sister." Clara giggled. She was always up for whatever Mom suggested. "Like a prank?" "Exactly like a prank," Mom said. "It'll be hilarious. We'll get so many views." I was standing right there. I heard the whole thing. "Mom, no, that's going to hurt to get out." "Oh, stop being dramatic," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's just a little gum. We'll wash it out." Except you can't just wash out gum. Anyone who's ever gotten gum in their hair knows that. And I think Mom knew that too. I think that was the point. The camera was already rolling when Clara came up behind me, chewing that gum with this mischievous look on her face that the audience would eat up. I was sitting on the floor, trying to read a book, trying to pretend this wasn't happening. She pressed the gum right into the roots of my hair, really ground it in there. And she was laughing, this nervous, excited laugh, because Mom had promised her ice cream afterward. I reached back and felt it, that sticky mess tangled impossibly in my hair, and something in my chest just cracked. "Mom, stop. Stop filming. It won't come out." But she kept the camera rolling, kept giving Clara directions. "Ask her if she's mad. Make a joke about it." Clara, still playing her part, said, "Come on, it's just a joke. Don't be so serious." I started crying. Not performing crying, not fake crying for content. Real, panicked, humiliated crying. And Mom just kept filming. She tried cutting it out first. But gum is stubborn. She ended up hacking away at my hair with kitchen scissors, leaving these horrible, uneven chunks, making it worse and worse while I sobbed and begged her to stop. "Please, Mom. Please just stop. Please." The video got titled, "Gum and Hair Disaster," with a screaming emoji. 4.2 million views. $11,000 that month. At school the next day, 3 girls held me down at recess while another one pushed gum into what was left of my hair. "We saw your video," they said. "Thought we'd help you make another one." I came home destroyed. Couldn't breathe right. Couldn't stop shaking. Mom's response? She filmed a follow-up. Speaking out against bullying, where she talked about how hurt she was that people would target her daughter, how online fame had a dark side, how she just wanted to protect her babies. 890,000 views on that one. That night I stopped eating. I just couldn't. My stomach felt like it was full of rocks. I started having panic attacks, these moments where I couldn't catch my breath and the room would spin. I developed this compulsive habit of pulling out my eyelashes one by one whenever I felt trapped. Clara didn't understand why I was so upset. "It was just a prank," she said. "Everyone thought it was funny. We got so many new subscribers." I looked at my sister, my identical twin, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. Or maybe I didn't recognize myself. Maybe we'd both become something else entirely, something manufactured, and she just didn't mind it the way I did. When I was 12, my English teacher assigned us an essay about our biggest fear. I wrote, "My biggest fear is that I'll never be myself, that I'll always be performing, always being watched, and I'll forget who I am underneath all of it." Ms. Chen kept me after class. She had this concerned look, the kind adults get when they're trying to decide if they're overreacting or if something is genuinely wrong. "I've seen your videos," she said quietly. "Your mom's channel? How much time do you spend filming?" I couldn't look at her. "Every day, a few hours, sometimes more." "And is that something you want to do?" The question hung in the air. Nobody had ever asked me that before. They'd asked if I was excited about subscribers, or which video was my favorite, or what it was like being internet famous. But nobody had ever asked if I actually wanted any of it. I started crying right there in her classroom. Just completely fell apart. She called Child Protective Services that afternoon. When the social worker showed up at our house 3 days later, Mom was ready. She'd coached us on exactly what to say, had cleaned the entire apartment until it gleamed, had printed out bank statements showing the college fund she was building for us. $64,000 set aside for our futures. See? Responsible parent. Financially stable. Thinking long-term. The social worker, this tired-looking woman with a clipboard, asked us questions while Mom made coffee in the kitchen. But here's the thing I noticed that nobody else seemed to catch. The camera on the tripod in the corner was still on. The little red light was blinking. Mom was filming the entire welfare check. "Do you girls enjoy making videos?" the social worker asked. Clara answered immediately, enthusiastically. "Yes, it's so fun. We get to try new toys and everyone watches us and we have so many subscribers." Then she looked at me. I knew what I was supposed to say. I knew what would happen if I didn't say it. I thought about the gum incident, about the hours of filming, about the panic attacks and the eyelash pulling and the feeling of being constantly watched even when the cameras were off. "Yes," I whispered. "We like it." I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell the truth with my mom standing right there, with that camera light blinking, with Clara looking at me like I was about to ruin everything. The words just wouldn't come out. The social worker made notes, looked around our clean house, saw 2 well-fed children in nice clothes, saw substantial savings, saw no visible bruises, no signs of obvious abuse, saw a mother who seemed caring and organized. "We'll keep this case open for observation," she said. 90 days, but everything seems fine here." After she left, the punishment was swift. We filmed until midnight without breaks, no water, no bathroom, no stopping even when Clara said she was tired and wanted to quit early. "You almost destroyed this family," Mom hissed between takes, her smile snapping back on for the camera. "Don't you ever do that again." That night, lying in bed, I cried silently into my pillow. Clara fell asleep within minutes, her breathing peaceful and even. That's when I really understood how different we were. She saw that day as a close call, a scare that had passed, everything returning to normal. She probably slept well because she was relieved it was over. I saw it as the day I'd learned that nobody was coming to save me, that I could scream and write essays and cry to teachers, and it wouldn't matter. The system had looked directly at my cage and decided it was a bedroom. After my 3 a.m. bathroom breakdown went viral, Mom had what she thought was a brilliant idea. If my genuine pain and vulnerability got 2.3 million views, why not keep it going? Why not make that the new content? She started manufacturing situations specifically designed to break me down, criticizing me on camera, comparing me to Clara, making little comments about my appearance, my personality, my lack of enthusiasm, and I'd react because how could I not? How? I was 13 and exhausted and everything hurt. She'd film it all. My tears were content. My panic attacks were content. My visible suffering was content. Breaking down on camera, real talk, got 1.7 million views. Why I'm struggling got 900,000. Every video where I looked destroyed performed better than anything we'd ever done before. But something else was happening that Mom didn't anticipate. Bigger creators, people with actual platforms and influence, started making response videos. Not reaction videos where they laughed or made jokes, call-out videos. This channel is exploiting trauma live from a creator with 4 million subscribers. We need to talk about child exploitation from a commentary channel with 6 million. The dark side of family vlogging, featuring screenshots of our worst moments. The hashtag started trending. Save the girls, stop child exploitation. People were tagging the platform, tagging child advocacy organizations, tagging news outlets. Mom's phone became this constant source of anxiety. Notifications were exploding every second, thousands of comments, most of them angry. People calling her abusive, exploitative, a monster. Some were supportive, defending her, but they were drowning in the wave of criticism. Our sponsors started backing out. A toy company that paid us $2,000 a month sent an email. "We can no longer be associated with your brand given the current public perception. Contract terminated effective immediately." Another one, another one, another one. The subscriber count started dropping. 380,000 down to 350,000, down to 300,000, down to 200,000. Watching it fall in real time was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Then the platform itself sent an official warning. First strike for child safety violations. One more, and the channel would be suspended. 2 more, and it would be permanently deleted. Mom was spiraling. She'd check her phone every 30 seconds, scroll through the comments, watch the numbers drop. She'd saved $89,000 total from the channel, but she'd been living off it completely for years. No other job, no backup plan. This was everything. That's when Ms. Chen came back into the picture, except this time she wasn't alone. She had a lawyer with her, someone who specialized in child welfare and exploitation cases. And she had evidence. Compiled videos, timestamps, patterns of concerning behavior, documentation of everything. "We're filing a formal complaint," the lawyer told us during a meeting Mom couldn't refuse. "What's happening here isn't legal. These children are performing labor without proper permits, protections, or compensation." Mom tried to argue. Tried to say we were just a family sharing our lives. That we loved doing this. That the money was being saved for our futures. The lawyer looked at me. "Is that true? Do you love doing this?" And this time, with a professional there, with documentation and legal backing, with the power dynamic finally shifted, I said it. "No. I hate it. I want it to stop." "Please make it stop." Clara grabbed my arm. "What are you doing? You're ruining everything." But I'd already said it. The truth was out there, recorded, documented. And this time, someone with actual power was listening. Everything happened fast after that. The platform gave us a second strike within 2 weeks. Then a third. Channel deleted permanently. 7 years of content gone in an instant. Clara sobbed for hours. I felt like I could finally breathe. The legal case was straightforward once the lawyers got involved. Child labor laws in our state were clear, even if nobody enforced them for family vloggers. We'd been working without permits, without set hours limits, without proper compensation or protection. Everything Mom had done was technically illegal. People just hadn't been paying attention. Mom took a plea deal to avoid jail time. The alternative was a trial that would have dragged on for months, maybe years, and probably ended with her behind bars. This way, she got to stay free with conditions. The financial terms were harsh. Every dollar she'd made from the channel, all $127,000 gross over 7 years, went into a trust fund, split between Clara and me. We couldn't touch it until we turned 21. Mom had to pay it back from the savings she'd kept, leaving her basically broke. Then came the custody arrangement. Mom lost primary custody. We were placed with our aunt, Mom's younger sister, who lived 2 cities over and had been horrified when she found out what had been happening. She'd been estranged from Mom for years. Their relationship complicated and distant, but she stepped up immediately when the court contacted her. Supervised visits only, twice a month. Mom couldn't create, post, or appear in any social media content involving minors. Not us, not anyone. 200 hours of community service. 2 years of probation. One wrong move, and she'd face jail time. She also had to get a real job again. Ended up working as a cashier at a grocery store, the exact kind of life she'd been so desperate to escape that she'd monetized her own children. The day we moved to our aunt's house, Clara cried the entire car ride. Not because she was scared of our aunt, but because she was leaving behind the only life she'd ever known and loved. She kept asking when we could go back home, when things would go back to normal. I sat in silence, watching the familiar streets disappear behind us, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, or just the absence of constant dread. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Our aunt's house was smaller, quieter. She worked as a nurse with normal hours. She cooked actual meals instead of ordering takeout between filming sessions. There was no ring light in the living room, no camera setups, no schedule of content to produce. "You're just going to be kids here," she told us that first night. No cameras, no performance, just normal, boring kid stuff. School, homework, maybe some hobbies when you figure out what you actually like. Clara looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "But what about the channel?" "There is no channel anymore," our aunt said gently. "That part of your life is over." Clara went to our shared bedroom and cried herself to sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process that it was really over. 7 years of my life gone. 7 years I'd never get back. But at least the next 7 wouldn't be the same. Except here's what nobody tells you about escaping something that's defined your entire existence. You don't know who you are without it. I'd been performing for so long that I didn't know what my real personality even was. Every interest, every preference, every reaction had been filtered through the question of, is this good content? Now there was no content. There was just me. And I had no idea who that was anymore. The first week at our aunt's house, I slept for 11 hours straight. My body just collapsed, like it had been waiting years for permission to rest. I woke up confused, panicked for a second that I was late for filming, then remembered. No filming. Not today. Not ever again. I cried from relief. Clara was having the opposite experience. She couldn't sleep. She'd wake up multiple times a night, check her phone where the channel used to be, scroll through old videos she'd saved to her camera roll. She'd watch them with this look of longing, like someone watching home videos of a deceased loved one. During meals, I'd eat slowly, actually tasting food for the first time in forever. Clara would push her plate around, barely eating, staring into space. "What do you girls want to do today?" our aunt asked on day 3. "We could go to the park, or the library, or just watch a movie." "Can we film it?" Clara asked automatically. "No, honey. No filming. We're just going to do things because we want to, not for content." Clara's face crumpled. "Then what's the point?" I didn't understand her reaction then. Looking back, I get it now. She'd spent 7 years, more than half her life, measuring every experience by its content value. If something wasn't being recorded, wasn't being shared, wasn't generating views and comments and validation, did it even matter? Did it even happen? By day 5, she exploded at dinner. "When are we going back? When can we start the channel again?" Our aunt put down her fork. "Clara, there's no going back. The channel is gone. That part of your life is finished." "But I was good at it. I was somebody. People knew who I was." "You're 14 years old. You're still somebody. You just need to figure out who that is without cameras." Clara turned to me, eyes blazing. "This is your fault. We were fine until you had to ruin everything with that stupid live video." Something in me snapped. We weren't fine, Clara. I was dying. I was having panic attacks every single day. I was pulling out my own eyelashes. So what? That was your problem, not mine. I loved our life. We were special. We were making money. We had hundreds of thousands of people who cared about us. They didn't care about us. They cared about the characters Mom made us play. That's who we are. That's who you are. It was never who I was. Our aunt had to separate us. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. Clara stayed in our room and I could hear her crying. I felt guilty and relieved and angry all at once. That night, lying in the dark with Clara's back turned to me from the other bed, I had this thought that's haunted me ever since. The house is finally quiet. No cameras, no lights, no performance. But inside my head, the cameras are still running. They'll always be running. I wondered if I'd ever really escape, even with all the physical cameras gone. If those 7 years had changed something fundamental in my brain, had wired me to always be aware of how I looked, how I sounded, whether my reactions were acceptable for an audience. Clara fell asleep eventually, her breathing evening out. But I knew she was dreaming of views and comments and the life she thought I'd stolen from her. We were in the same room, in the same situation, finally free from the same prison. But we couldn't have been further apart. She saw freedom as loss. I saw it as survival. And neither of us could understand how the other felt that way. The court required us to go to therapy. Individual sessions and some joint ones. I started seeing someone twice a week, this patient woman who didn't push, but also didn't let me hide. In my first session, I broke down describing the bathroom floor live video, then the gum incident, then the feeling of never being alone, never being real, always performing even when cameras were off. The nightmares where I was trapped in a room with infinite cameras, all of them watching, all of them recording, and no matter how much I screamed, nobody would turn them off. She listened to everything, took notes, and finally said, "You're describing complex PTSD, hypervigilance, dissociation, depersonalization. Your brain learned that you were never safe, that you were always being watched and judged. That's not something that just goes away when the cameras stop." Having a name for it helped somehow. Knowing I wasn't crazy or weak or dramatic. That my reactions were normal responses to an abnormal situation. Clara's therapy was going differently. She fought it from day one. She didn't want to be there, didn't think she needed it, didn't see the point. "I wasn't abused," she told her therapist in a session our aunt told me about later. "I loved making videos. I was happy. Everyone keeps trying to tell me I was exploited. But I wasn't. I wanted to do it." Her therapist, trained and experienced, tried to explain. "Clara, you were 8, 9, 10 years old. Children that age can't meaningfully consent to full-time work. You might have enjoyed parts of it, that's valid, but the situation itself wasn't healthy or legal. So my feelings are wrong? Your feelings are completely valid. But feelings don't make a situation okay. You can feel happy in an unhealthy environment. Those things can coexist." Clara shut down after that, stopped engaging, just sat there for 50 minutes, giving one-word answers until the session ended. Then came our joint session. Both of us in the room with the therapist, trying to bridge a gap that felt infinite. "You both experienced the same situation," the therapist said carefully. "Same mother, same channel, same 7 years, but you're having vastly different reactions to it. Can you each explain how you feel about what happened?" I went first, talked about the anxiety, the loss of childhood, the feeling of being a product instead of a person, the relief of it ending, even though I was still struggling with the aftermath. Clara's turn. "I feel like my sister destroyed the best thing that ever happened to us because she couldn't handle it. I feel like I lost everything that mattered. I feel like nobody understands that I actually liked my life." The silence was heavy. The therapist looked between us. "This is actually more common than you might think. 2 children in the same traumatic situation can have completely opposite responses. One might recognize it as harmful. The other might have adapted to it so thoroughly that they don't see the harm. Both reactions are valid trauma responses." Then she said something that stuck with me forever. "You two might never fully understand each other, and that's okay. Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't bridging the gap. It's accepting that the gap exists and might always exist." I looked at Clara. She looked at me. We were identical faces with completely incompatible experiences of our shared reality. "I just want you to admit you took away something I loved," Clara said, her voice breaking. "I just want you to admit that what we went through wasn't okay," I replied. Neither of us could give the other what they needed. The therapist was right. The gap wasn't going to close. We were two people walking away from the same fire, except one of us had burns and the other was cold. We were 15 when we had one of our supervised visits with Mom. These happened twice a month at a community center, with a social worker sitting in the corner taking notes, making sure Mom followed all the rules. Mom looked terrible. She'd lost weight, had circles under her eyes, wore the grocery store uniform. Her whole demeanor was different, smaller, defeated. The woman who'd once orchestrated our entire lives with military precision now couldn't make eye contact for more than a few seconds. "How are you girls?" she asked, her voice thin. "Fine," I said automatically. "Bored," Clara said, and it felt like an accusation. Mom tried to make conversation, asked about school, about our aunt's house, about whether we needed anything. Generic parent questions that felt hollow because she'd never been that kind of parent. She'd been a director, a manager, a producer, not a mom who asked about homework and feelings. Then, maybe 20 minutes into the visit, she said something that made my stomach turn. "I tried to make content without you." She laughed, but it was a broken sound. Vlogs about life after everything. Talking about lessons learned, moving forward. I recorded 3 videos on my phone, never posted any of them. "Why not?" Clara asked, leaning forward. "Because nobody cares about me without you two. The channel was never about me. It was about you girls. I was just the one behind the camera." She paused, staring at her hands. "Without you, I'm nobody. Just another single mom working retail." That's when I understood something horrifying. Mom wasn't just exploiting us for money. She was addicted to the validation, the attention, the sense of purpose and importance that came from running a successful channel. We were her drug. "You made a good life for us," Mom continued, and her voice cracked. "Your dad left us with nothing. We were drowning. Then the channel took off and suddenly we mattered. People knew our names. We had money. We had security." "We?" I couldn't help it. "You had security. We had jobs we couldn't quit." Mom flinched. "I know how it looks now. I do. But at the time, I genuinely thought I was giving you opportunities. A better childhood than I had. Financial stability. Fame. We were 8 years old," I said. "We didn't need fame. We needed a mom." The social worker shifted in her corner, writing something down. "I just wanted to be seen," Mom whispered. And she was crying now. Not performing crying, not content crying. Real crying that made her face red and ugly. My whole life I was invisible. Then suddenly, through you girls, I mattered. People listened to me, looked up to me. I was somebody. Clara was crying, but silently, her face wet. I felt nothing but a distant kind of pity. "You used us," I said flatly. "You can call it whatever you want. Frame it however makes you feel better. But you used your own daughters for validation and money. And you'll never really admit that because admitting it means accepting what you are." "What am I?" Mom asked, looking at me with red, swollen eyes. "An addict who sacrificed her children to feed her addiction." The visit ended early. Mom couldn't stop crying. The social worker escorted us out and I didn't look back. In the car, Clara turned to me. "Did you have to be so cruel? Was I wrong?" She didn't answer, which was an answer itself. We drove back to our aunt's house in silence, both of us processing different things. Clara mourning the mother she still wanted to love. Me mourning the mother I'd never really had. The day Clara turned 18, she created new social media accounts. All of them, every platform. Fresh starts with her real name and face and no mention of the old channel, though everyone who found her knew exactly who she was. I was 17, studying for college entrance exams, trying to build a life that had nothing to do with cameras or performance or being watched. I'd changed my appearance. Cut my hair pixie short where Clara kept hers long, started wearing glasses I didn't really need just to look different from her, dressed in plain clothes that wouldn't draw attention. Clara went the opposite direction, started posting dancing videos, trendy challenges, photos in bikinis and club outfits. She dated other small influencers, always people with decent followings who could boost her visibility. She created drama, started petty feudances with other creators, anything to get attention. I watched it happen from a distance, horrified, and helpless. "Clara," I said one night when she was filming a dance in our shared room, "do you not see what you're doing? This is exactly what destroyed us before." She stopped, lowered her phone. "No, this is completely different." "How?" "Because I'm an adult now. I'm choosing this. Nobody's forcing me." "You don't choose this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You were conditioned for it. You're addicted to the validation and attention. You never learned how to exist without an audience." Her face went cold. "And you're addicted to being a victim. You define your entire identity by something that happened years ago. I'm moving forward. You're drowning in the past." "Moving forward?" "You're recreating the exact situation that traumatized us." "That traumatized you," she shouted. "I was never traumatized. I loved it. The only trauma I have is from losing it." We stared at each other across the room, both of us breathing hard. Identical faces with completely incompatible realities inside them. "You're going to end up just like Mom," I said quietly. "Chasing validation that will never be enough. Using yourself as content until there's nothing left. And you're going to end up alone and bitter, blaming everyone else for your problems instead of taking responsibility for your own happiness." Something broke between us in that moment. Not loudly, but definitively. The crack that had been forming for years finally split all the way through. "When I turn 18 and go to college," I said, "I'm done. I'm cutting contact with you. I can't watch you destroy yourself with the same thing that almost killed me." Clara's eyes widened, then hardened. "Fine. Maybe that's better anyway. You've been dragging me down since you were 13 and decided to ruin everything." "I didn't ruin anything. I escaped." "You escaped and pulled me out of somewhere I wanted to stay. That's not rescue. That's kidnapping." I moved out the day after my 18th birthday. Got accepted to a college 3 states away. Packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases. Our aunt tried to mediate, to get us to talk, but what was there to say? We'd already said everything. The last time I saw Clara in person, she was filming a makeup tutorial, her phone propped on the dresser, her voice bright and performative for the camera. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't expect her to. I closed the door on 7 years of forced performance and 18 years of being a twin to someone I didn't recognize anymore. Some people think being a twin means having an automatic best friend, someone who understands you better than anyone else in the world. But Clara and I proved that wrong. We came from the same womb, had the same face, lived the same childhood, and we couldn't have been more fundamentally different if we tried. When we turned 21, we each got access to the trust fund. $63,500, the accumulated money from 7 years of our childhoods, split down the middle. I heard through our aunt what Clara did with hers, withdrew it all immediately, invested in her influencer career, professional camera equipment, ring lights, editing software, a whole new wardrobe of trendy clothes, got cosmetic procedures, subtle but noticeable, hired a social media manager for a few months until she couldn't afford it anymore. She'd built up to 180,000 followers at that point. Not huge by influencer standards, but respectable. Except most people followed her out of morbid curiosity. They knew who she was, remembered the scandal from when we were teenagers. The comments were always a mix of support and speculation. Isn't she one of those twins whose mom exploited them? She's really going back to social media after everything? I feel bad for her, but also why is she doing this to herself? She posted dance videos, outfit checks, day-in-the-life vlogs. Dated a series of small-time influencers, always people with decent followings, always relationships that generated content and drama. They'd have public fights, public makeups, public breakups. Everything was content. She made money. Small brand deals, maybe $800 here, $1,200 there. Enough to survive but not thrive. Enough to keep chasing but never quite catching the success she remembered from childhood. I used my money differently, paid my entire tuition for my remaining 2 years of college up front. $48,000 for a degree in psychology with a focus on child development and trauma. Paid for therapy, good therapy, twice a week. Covered rent so I didn't have to work during my hardest semesters. Put the rest in savings for emergencies. I changed my appearance more dramatically around then. Cut my hair even shorter, almost buzzed. The glasses became permanent. I dressed in plain clothes. Neutral colors, nothing that would draw attention. I wanted to disappear into normalcy. I deleted all my social media accounts, every single one. If someone tried to tag me or mention me, they'd hit a dead end. I became essentially unfindable online. I stopped talking to Mom entirely. Clara still saw her occasionally. According to our aunt, though their relationship was complicated. Mom still worked retail, still lived in that tiny apartment, still seemed diminished compared to who she'd been when the channel was thriving. Our aunt tried to get Clara and me to reconcile. Sent texts saying how sad it was that we didn't talk, that we were sisters, that family mattered. But she didn't understand. We weren't just sisters who'd fought and drifted apart. We were two people with fundamentally incompatible worldviews shaped by the same trauma we'd processed in opposite directions. Clara saw her influencer career as reclaiming her agency, choosing for herself what had once been forced on her, succeeding on her own terms. I saw it as self-destruction, as addiction, as recreating the exact circumstances that had damaged us both. We were both right about our own experiences, and both completely unable to understand the other's perspective. By 22, I was in graduate school studying childhood trauma and digital exploitation specifically. I wanted to help other kids like us, wanted to create protections and interventions that hadn't existed when we needed them. Clara was posting increasingly provocative content, chasing engagement that kept slipping through her fingers, burning through the money she'd gotten from our childhood exploitation to fuel her adult version of the same thing. Two identical girls who'd started in exactly the same place, who'd experienced exactly the same 7 years of exploitation, who'd been given exactly the same resources to start over. And we'd used all of it to become completely opposite people, walking completely opposite paths, unable to even speak to each other anymore. Sometimes I wondered if she thought about me, if she watched herself dance for cameras and remembered when we used to do it together, if any part of her recognized the pattern she was repeating. Mostly, though, I tried not to think about her at all. It hurt too much. I'm 28 now, have my master's degree in child psychology with a specialization in trauma and digital exploitation. I work for a nonprofit organization that helps kids who've been exploited online, whether through family vlogging or other forms of monetized childhood. I testify as an expert witness in court cases. I help draft legislation to protect children from what happened to me and Clara. My life is quiet. I have 3 close friends who don't know about my past. I live alone in a small apartment with plants and books and absolutely 0 cameras, no social media, no online presence. When people Google my name, they find nothing. That's exactly how I want it. Last month, I was at the grocery store buying coffee when a woman stopped me in the aisle. "Oh my God, are you Clara? I follow you. Your dance videos are so good." My heart stopped. I'd forgotten that to the outside world. Clara and I are still identical. Same face, even with my short hair and glasses. Same bone structure, same voice. "No," I managed to say, "you've got the wrong person." But she was already pulling out her phone. "Can I get a picture? This is so random running into you here." "I'm not Clara," I said more firmly. "I'm her sister." "Oh, the other twin. Even better. Can I still get a photo?" I walked away without answering, left my cart in the middle of the aisle, sat in my car shaking for 15 minutes before I could drive home. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked up Clara's social media. She has 192,000 followers now. The number fluctuates. Some posts do well, others barely get engagement. Her content has gotten more provocative over the years. More skin, more drama, more desperate grabs for attention. Her most recent post was a dance video in a bikini. 15,000 likes. Comments mostly from men, some creepy, some supportive. A few people asking, "Aren't you one of those twins from that exploitation scandal?" She never responded to those comments. She's also recently gone through a breakup with some micro-influencer. They'd done couples content together for 8 months, garnered some attention from the drama. Now she's single again and posting things about betrayal and moving on and being stronger. I scrolled through her profile feeling this complicated mix of pity and anger and sadness. She looks tired in the videos, even under the filters and makeup. There's something hollow in her smile. Something performed. She's been performing so long, I'm not sure she knows how to stop. The worst part? The absolute worst part of still being her identical twin? People mistake me for her constantly, and every single time it happens, I'm dragged back into a life I spent years escaping. Every confusion, every "aren't you?" every shocked recognition. It's a reminder that no matter how far I run, I'll always be connected to her. I see my therapist twice a month now, down from twice a week. She says I've made incredible progress, that I've built a life and identity completely separate from my childhood trauma, that I'm using my experience to help others, which is a powerful form of healing. But then I get mistaken for Clara in a grocery store, and I'm 13 again, sitting on that bathroom floor, begging strangers for help while my twin sister slept soundly in the next room. Last night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, looked at my face, this face I share with someone I don't speak to anymore. I turned off all the lights, just me and the darkness and my reflection barely visible. I whispered, "I'm real. I exist without cameras. I'm not her." Some days I believe it. Other days, the shadow of my twin sister, my identical face living a completely opposite life, chases me like a ghost I can never outrun. Clara never got real therapy, never processed what happened to us, never understood that what we experienced was exploitation, not opportunity. She took all that unprocessed trauma and poured it into recreating the exact circumstances that created it. She became what she was taught to be. Content. And me? I ran as far as I could in the opposite direction, cut ties with everyone, changed everything about myself except the face I was born with, built a life around helping children escape what I escaped. We're both survivors of the same exploitation. But only one of us survived intact enough to recognize what happened. The other one is still performing, still chasing validation, still convinced that this time it's different because she's choosing it. That's the truth about childhood trauma that nobody wants to acknowledge. Not everyone heals. Not everyone even recognizes they're wounded. Some people just take their damage and call it personality. Call it ambition. Call it choice. Clara and I are identical twins. Same DNA, same face, same 7 years of exploitation. But we're separated by an understanding neither of us can bridge. I know we were harmed. She thinks we were lucky. I exist in silence, away from cameras, building protections for other children. She exists in full view, performing for cameras, becoming exactly what our mother made her. One of us escaped. One of us is still there, just in a new cage of her own making. And the saddest part? She doesn't even know she's trapped. She's trapped.